Hello, and welcome back to Playful Pedagogy. I'm Maureen, and today we're starting something that I am truly excited about. But first, I want to tell you about a classroom moment from a recent lesson. I was doing a unit on rooms and furniture with my middle schooler, English language learners. I projected a picture on the board, a bedroom, but not just any bedroom. Every single detail was math themed. There were equations on the wall, geometric patterns on the pillow, a bookshelf with math textbooks. And I asked my learners, "What do you see?" They noticed everything, the numbers, the angles, the posters. And then I asked, "What do you think?" And one student goes, "I think it's our math teacher's room." We all laughed. Then I asked, "What questions do you have?" A hand went up in the back of the room. "Is that your room?" More laughter. And to be fair, I had shown them a photo of my actual house at the start of the unit when we started talking about houses. So that's legit. Here's what I loved about that moment though. In all the laughter, something real had happened. My learners had made careful observations. They'd built an interpretation from the evidence in front of them, and they'd asked a genuine question. That 3-step sequence, See, Think, Wonder, is one of Harvard Project Zero's visual thinking routines. And it's honestly one of the most used routines in my classroom, which is what today's video, and in fact this whole series, is going to be about. Project Zero. I've talked about it on my channel before. It's a research center at the Harvard Graduate School of Education that was founded in 1967 with this beautifully simple question: can thinking be taught? Decades of research later, one of their most enduring contributions is something called visible thinking, and it's designed to do 2 things at the same time: develop a learner's thinking skills and deepen their understanding of content. Not just one, but both together. At the heart of the toolkit are the visual thinking routines, short, repeatable sequences of questions that make student thinking visible to us as teachers, but also, and this is the part I really love, to the learners themselves. They get to use their own thinking, and that is so powerful. So what actually is a visual thinking routine, or VTRs as they're commonly called? I think of it as a structured invitation to think. It's different from a worksheet, different from a test. It's a routine, something you return to again and again, and they work across different subjects and topics. You repeat the routine until the thinking patterns start to become habits, until your learners aren't waiting to be asked, "What do you notice?" They just start noticing on their own. They're deliberately simple because the routine is just the scaffold. What gets built on top is completely up to your learners, guided by you, the facilitator of the learning. Now, there are dozens of VTRs out there, so many in fact that I haven't tried them all myself yet, honestly, but in this series, we're going to focus on the ones that I do use most in my middle school classrooms. See, Think, Wonder, Zoom In, Compass Points, I used to think, now I think Paired, Share, Headlines, and See, Wonder, Connect. Each one opens a different kind of thinking, and each one has surprised me or delighted me more than once. So why do they work? Project Zero's research rests on one foundational idea that I find both completely obvious and quietly radical at the same time. Learning is a consequence of thinking. When learners genuinely think through ideas, when they observe, interpret, question, connect, and reflect, their understanding of the content deepens, their memory for it improves, and the relationship to learning starts to shift. VTRs make that thinking visible, and that matters so much because when thinking stays inside a student's head, it's difficult to build on, to respond to it, or to celebrate it. When it comes out, though, through words, questions, images, discussion, it becomes something we can all work with, something real and almost tangible. Now, here's where it gets especially exciting for those of us who teach languages, or honestly, any subject where thinking about how learners are acquiring the language of the discipline is important. The theory of comprehensible input tells us we acquire language most naturally when we encounter messages we can mostly understand, when meaning is clear from context The stakes are low and the focus is on ideas rather than being perfect. VTRs create exactly those conditions. Let me show you what I mean. When I use See, Think, Wonder with a picture of a girl listening to music for a unit on the 5 senses, for example, here's what happens. In the see phase, learners observe a girl, headphones, eyes closed. The image carries the meaning. Even a student with very limited language can participate. Pointing is valid, a single word is valid. Then, in the think phase, we build a little more. I model the language I want them to use. I think she is listening to music she loves because she looks peaceful. Learners hear that structure, opinion plus evidence, anchored to something they can actually see. They reproduce it at their own level. And then the wonder phase. And this is where something kind of remarkable happens. Question formation is one of the hardest structures in almost any language. But here, learners are genuinely curious. And at the start of the year, I often hear just one-word answers. Music? And I gently reframe. I wonder if she's listening to music. That reframe is a tiny language lesson wrapped in encouragement because the questions are growing from the curiosity of the learner. If it's later in the year, I might add, or maybe she's listening to a story to help expand their thinking. Sometimes I might also build community by saying, oh yeah, I'm wondering if she's listening to music too, me too. The sentence frames themselves. I see, I think, I wonder. They're more than thinking scaffolds. They're language scaffolds, used over and over across units and subjects. They become acquired structures, not just memorized, but actually acquired. So, what makes VTR playful? This is really the question at the heart of this whole series, and I want to answer it honestly. What makes it playful is the spirit you bring. Play, the way I understand it, is open-ended, low stakes, curious, and collaborative. It involves agency. It gives learners the sense that questions are worth asking, that their weird interpretation has a place in our classroom, and that their contribution matters. VTRs, done well, do all of that. When a student asks if that math bedroom is my bedroom, my response is to laugh and lean in, because that question reveals exactly the kind of thinking I'm hoping for. Open, honest, a little audacious perhaps, but definitely fun and kind of funny. Comprehensible input theory calls it the effective filter. When learners are relaxed, when they're laughing, their guard comes down, and that is when learning really comes in. Playfulness isn't a distraction, it's actually the condition for learning. Every video in this series is going to include what I'm calling the playful twist, specific practical ideas to bring genuine play into each routine. So stick around for those. Before I go, I want to invite you to try something this week. Put an image, any image, in front of your learners. A photograph, an illustration, something from your current unit. And ask these 3 questions. What do you see? What do you think? What do you wonder? Then listen to what comes out. Something may surprise you. And if something unexpected or funny or wonderful happens when you try it, please tell me about it in the comments. I genuinely love reading about the playfulness and the interesting things that these thinking routines bring out in our learners. The next video in this series is going to be about zooming in, including some specific playful ways to make the zoom in visual thinking routine come alive in your classroom. And I am excited to share it with you. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a day full of play, and I will see you next time. Bye.